Caucus. Senator Batters.
Great. Thank you very much for mentioning that, Speaker. Honourable Senators, I rise today to speak against Senator Pratte's motion to establish a special committee on prosecutorial independence, although I do commend Senator Pratte for turning his attention to this issue. We on the Conservative side of the Senate had begun to wonder if the members of the Independent Senators group were interested in discussing the SNC Lavalin scandal consuming the Trudeau government. In the speech introducing his motion, Senator Pratte asked senators, "Where is the Senate on this issue?" In reply to him, I answer, "Where have you been?" Every day since the Senate resumed sitting in February, Conservative senators have worked tirelessly to uncover the truth of this whole mess. Senator Pratte fears the Senate will be seen as a chamber that lacks courage and relevance. He posed the question, quote, "When we are asked where we were while this massive crisis was unfolding, what will we say?" I can tell you, Senator Pratte, that I will have no problem answering that question. I was here, holding the Trudeau government accountable, asking Senator Harder the tough questions Canadians want answered about this whole affair. My Conservative colleagues and I have stood up for the rule of law and for democracy in this country. We have asked about this issue almost every day since the Senate resumed on February 19th. 113 questions so far in question period, in fact. And ISG senators, they've asked 3. Oddly enough, none of those questions has been Senator Pratte's. For someone so remarkably concerned about Senate inaction on this Trudeau government scandal, he seems incurious. Instead, Senator Pratte has proposed this motion, which I find weak, that sidesteps the pertinent issues at the heart of the Trudeau government's SNC Lavalin scandal in favor of academic and theoretical debates. We don't need a committee to study prosecutorial independence. The need for prosecutorial independence should be self-evident. It's one of the most basic and fundamental tenets of our justice system. The problem in the SNC Lavalin matter is that Prime Minister Trudeau and his closest advisors didn't respect prosecutorial independence or the rule of law. That is the issue that a committee needs to investigate, not the history of the Shawcross Doctrine or whether the roles of the Justice Minister and Attorney General should be separated. Separating the roles of Justice Minister and Attorney General would have made absolutely no difference in the SNC Lavalin scandal. The Trudeau government has peddled this idea to Canadians in a desperate attempt to distract from the real matter at hand. They've even tasked a former Liberal Deputy Prime Minister and former Trudeau Foundation alumnus, Anne McClellan, to study the separation of those roles. Now there is a shocker. In truth, Ms. McClellan's Make Work project will have precious little practical effect in preventing another SNC Lavalin-type scandal in the future. In more than 150 years of Canadian history, it was not and is not Canada's Attorney Generals who have had a problem with maintaining their prosecutorial independence. It's only Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his top officials who can't seem to wrap their heads around that concept. This Trudeau government has no respect for how the Attorney General role is separate and distinct from any other cabinet ministers. They don't understand and they don't care to if it gets in the way of their political ends. The question that should be the focus of any committee studying the SNC Lavalin affair is, did the Prime Minister and officials within the highest echelons of his government pressure the former Attorney General on a prosecutorial decision that was hers and hers alone, yes or no? Canadians deserve answers on that matter, honourable senators. This speaks directly to whether Canadians can trust the Trudeau government to protect and uphold democracy. If not, then Prime Minister Trudeau and his cabinet have lost the moral authority to govern. If government officials can play fast and loose with the principle of prosecutorial independence in the SNC Lavalin affair, what is to stop a Prime Minister from picking up the phone to order the criminal prosecution of his or her political enemies? It is a slippery slope, honourable senators, and one that should trouble all Canadians. Senator Pratte says that all of the facts of this matter are now in the open. This could not be further from the truth. Jody Wilson-Raybould named 11 individuals she had alleged had been involved in pressuring her regarding the SNC Lavalin matter. Only 3 of those individuals testified at the House of Commons Justice Committee before the Liberal majority hastily shut that committee study down. Senator Pratte was a journalist for a long time. If he was writing an exposé and was aware of 11 potential first-hand sources or witnesses, would he only interview 3? A number of honourable senators here have served as police officers before their appointments to this chamber. I ask them, would you have conducted an investigation by speaking only to 3 out of 11 witnesses or persons of interest? Of course not. By any measure, that would be an inadequate investigation. You would be failing to fulfill your duty, and that is what the Trudeau government has done here. There are many issues with Senator Pratte's motion. For one, the motion doesn't even mention the former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould or SNC Lavalin, the corporation that is central to this entire sordid affair. In fact, the motion is pretty much silent on all facts at the center of the SNC Lavalin scandal. I find it rather alarming that from the outset, Senator Pratte declares that the committee he is proposing to look into this matter, quote, should not be tasked with investigating what happened. That is precisely the problem. Now, I recognize that the Liberal government would just as soon avoid any sort of investigation. However, I do find it regrettable that Senator Pratte's motion would enable them to do just that. Prime Minister Trudeau has already used the force of his majority to shut down the House of Commons Justice Committee inquiry without the committee even attempting to put a report together. Major witnesses, including Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jerry Butts, and Michael Wernick, submitted written material to the committee which has not been tested because the Trudeau government shut the committee down prematurely. They've also prevented the Ethics Committee from taking up the matter. And just when Senator Smith's motion to send the SNC Lavalin affair to be studied by the Senate Legal Affairs Committee began to pick up traction, Prime Minister Trudeau's government Senate leader tried to unilaterally gut the motion to render it useless. Senator Pratte introduced another motion to call Jody Wilson-Raybould and others before the Senate Legal Committee, and guess what? Now Senator Pratte thinks we should create a whole new committee, but wants to ensure that it not be tasked with finding out what happened. Curious. Senator Pratte says he's concerned that by supporting a Conservative motion, he would be playing the opposition game. In fact, Senator Pratte's motion is nothing but an attempt to help the Trudeau government continue to play hide-and-seek. Canadians deserve better than this, particularly when the rule of law is at stake. Honourable Senators, Senator Pratte knows full well that his motion will shield the Trudeau government from accountability. That is the purpose. You know it, and I know it. He wants to study every aspect of the issue except for the facts, because the facts are damning and they are inescapable. Contrary to Prime Minister Trudeau's assertions, people don't experience truth differently. There is only truth. The Prime Minister has spun so many different versions of what he calls the truth, he can't keep his stories straight anymore. On February 15th, he told Canadians he was not aware that his former Attorney General felt any undue pressure because she had never brought it to his attention. But in April, in the House of Commons, under questioning from my Conservative MP colleague Pierre Poilievre, Prime Minister Trudeau admitted that Jody Wilson-Raybould had asked him last September if he was trying to interfere in her decision regarding SNC Lavalin's prosecution. Prime Minister Trudeau was well aware of where Jody Wilson-Raybould stood on the matter. He just didn't want to take her no for an answer. Senator Pratte's motion proposes to create a whole new committee, with membership constituted according to a whole new formula, other than the one on which our committees are currently comprised. I don't think that's advisable in setting precedent for the rules of this place, nor do I think it's necessary. Senator Pratte proposes a new committee of 6 ISG members, 3 Conservative members, and 1 Liberal. The legal committee that Senator Pratte seems to want to avoid is made up of 6 ISG members, 4 Conservative members, 1 Liberal member, the chair, and currently 1 non-affiliated senator, Senator Jaffer. He doesn't give much justification for that, so it appears that the aim is to ensure that there is 1 less Conservative senator involved in this investigation. The Independent Senators Group already holds the majority of seats on the Legal Committee. Why do we need a whole new committee with 1 less Conservative member to deal with the study of that particular matter? Is this the tyranny of the majority at work? One of the Senate's roles is supposed to be the representation of minority interests in the legislative process, and that should include the representation of minority viewpoints as well. Also, whether Senator Pratte likes it or not, Conservative senators do hold the role of official opposition in the Senate. And while I know many on the government and ISG benches would like to obliterate opposition in this place and turn the Senate chamber into an echo chamber reflecting only that one viewpoint, that is not how our system is structured, and it's certainly not what is best for our democracy. This motion is yet another attempt by the government to silence the opposition. The Trudeau government loves to crack down on dissent. We have seen the Prime Minister attempting to silence Jody Wilson-Raybould by leaving a partial confidentiality requirement in place, and by him kicking both Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott out of caucus. But covering up potential political interference in a criminal prosecution is wrong. Canadians deserve answers, honourable senators. My colleague Senator Don Pratte has proposed a motion suggesting that the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee is the proper venue to try and get to the bottom of this scandal. I share that view. For one thing, most of the senators on the Senate Legal Committee have legal backgrounds. We don't need to spend time learning about the concept of prosecutorial independence. Everyone sitting around that committee table should have a firm grounding in that. Our chair, esteemed constitutional lawyer, scholar, and experienced parliamentarian, Senator Serge Royal, doesn't need a primer in the Shawcross Doctrine. He has, however, indicated publicly his support for the legal committee to get to the bottom of this SNC scandal. Many of us who are lawyers on the legal committee have experience conducting courtroom examinations of witnesses, and we can effectively expose the relevant facts in this case. Senator Pratte suggested it might be an advantage for a Senate committee to study deferred prosecution agreements, or DPAs. Of course, our Senate Legal Committee, of which Senator Pratte is a member, already studied the deferred prosecution agreement provisions contained in Bill C-74, the Trudeau government's previous Budget Implementation Act. We didn't have nearly as much time as we would have liked to study those provisions, given that Senator Harder was pushing hard for us to return the bill to the Senate floor after only 2 meetings. Our committee made the observation, unanimously I might add, that such a major criminal code change should not have been rolled into omnibus budget legislation. We also made another unanimous observation that the then Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould did not appear before our committee to defend this major criminal code change, despite it being the usual practice. We had issued repeated invitations for her to do so. Given that all that has transpired around this matter since, it does beg the question whether the Trudeau government's pressure to ensure the DPA provisions passed quickly was precisely in order for them to avoid scrutiny. Minister Wilson-Raybould's reluctance to appear on DPAs before our committee also raises the question of whether she was already facing undue pressure on this SNC file at that point. Senator Pratte is concerned that Legal Committee will be too busy to handle an inquiry of this nature. Our committee is accustomed to handling a busy legislative agenda, even though the Trudeau government has not introduced that much justice legislation in comparison with the previous Conservative government. Where there is a will for the existing legal committee to study the SNC Lavalin scandal, there would be a way. We do not need to strike a whole new committee. The senators on the legal committee have the expertise to handle such a study, and as I mentioned, we have a unique interest in the issue of DPAs and the former Attorney General role in that matter based on our previous work. Significant and very serious questions about this affair remain unresolved, and Senator Pratte's proposed committee is doomed to fail in addressing them. That is why I would encourage you to join me in opposing Senator Pratte's motion. I ask you to instead support Senator Plet's motion and bring this matter before the Senate Legal Committee. Thank you.
Senator Smithville-Deschênes.
I have a question for Senator Batters. Would she accept a question? Senator Batters, I couldn't help but ask you a question, given this the comments against Senator Pratte, who is not here today. I spoke in favor of this motion, as you know. For me, the fact that you are questioning the motives to get around independent senators is unacceptable. You keep saying that we're just repeating the words of the government, but I think that has nothing to do with the motion by Senator Pratte. The committee that he wishes to establish is a special committee because time is short at this end of session to discuss this matter at the Justice Committee. He also does not want to determine who will be the witnesses to allow the committee full independence to set its own witnesses. It is difficult to believe that there could be a committee that would only have Jody Wilson-Raybould testify when she said herself that she has said everything she needed to say on the issue. So I I think that it is difficult to believe that despite what she has to say, we would continue to have her speaking. In short, Senator Batters, I wonder why you are sticking on this point and why you are questioning the motives of senators like myself and Andre Pratte, who are simply trying to propose an in-depth study of the issue, because the Senate plays a complementary role and must not duplicate the work of the Ethics Commissioner or the House of Commons on this matter.
Your time has expired. Are you asking for time to answer questions for 5 more minutes?
I would need 1 minute to answer.
1 minute. Is leave granted, honourable senators? Agreed. Senator Batters.
Thank you, Senatrice. First of all, I thought that my speech did a fair bit to address those particular items. This is Senator Pratte's amendment, so I directly addressed what his particular amendment provides. I indicated that this particular matter, the Senate Legal Committee is already well equipped to deal with this, and in fact, we already have had a unique interest in both the study of the DPAs and in the particular former Attorney General's role in this very issue. I addressed the fact that time is short, and Senator Plet's motion not only indicates that Jody Wilson-Raybould would be a witness, but others as to be determined by the particular committee, so it already addresses those things. To me, Senator Pratte's amendment motion is very similar to the one that the Liberals tried to bring forward in the House of Commons, which dealt not even at all with the subject of SNC Lavalin, but instead dealt with theoretical and academic studies, and Canadians want answers on SNC Lavalin. There have been too many avenues that have been shut down by the Liberal government, and we need to make sure that they get those answers. Thank you.